Hey everybody. How's it going? Are you enjoying the weather? I know your mouths are all full, so I'll ask you to raise your hands instead of speaking back so you don't spew on the person in front of you. I'm really excited to be here, and I wanted to start out with a couple of polls. First of all, who's ever been to happy hour? Happy hour, right? You know what happy hour is, right? 5 o'clock, you go get beers, they're cheaper, kind of thing. Or other drinks. Who's ever been to a holiday sale like Black Friday? Anybody? Right? So this is what's known as the appointment mechanic. And we use it in games a lot, like World of Warcraft or Farmville. You'll see these things where if you can get your players to show up at a specific time, then they get a specific reward. Right? So we do this all the time. So who has a credit card that you get points for when you spend? Right? Do you pay your bills with it? I do. What do you get excited when you go to get the $4 coffee that you get a bonus of times 2, so you get 8 points to add to your 2,000 that gets to your 1 million, so you can get the $100 gift certificate to go to Aruba? Right? Do you do that? I know I do. We're getting gamed all the time. Like there's games everywhere. Who makes mistakes? Right? This is why we play games, so that we can make mistakes. We can fiddle around and try and figure stuff out through the mistakes making of a safe environment. Right? So this is what I'm going to talk a little bit about, is the mechanics of gaming, but specifically about engagement and how you get an audience or a specific participation from a group of people. So it's not a bad thing that we're getting gamed. There's a lot of really awesome mechanics that are causing some awesome social change in the world. And I want to start by telling you a story of a game that I created with my family last year. I have 2 daughters and a son. My son's name is True, and he's 6 years old. And he doesn't really like to do his chores like most of us. But at 6 years old, he's ready to tell me that he would prefer to play than do his chores, right? It's one of the beauties of children. So one of the things that we decided to do was create a game around chores. So we called it well, I'm not going to tell you what we called it yet. But we were going with his interest. So I said, okay, well, let's make a game. So who here likes to play a game? Okay, and the rest of you prefer to work? Just checking in. Okay, so let me step out of the story for a second. In 1996, I started my business. It was my first business. I was 21 years old, and it was a business in socially responsible and environmentally friendly consumer products. It was a multi-level marketing company called Equinox International. The whole premise around the company was to engage the community, engage the customers, have them become salespeople, and ultimately it was a very successful short run of the company. But one of the key things that they did, or one of the key things that I learned through the process, was the people that were succeeding were the people that were at these trainings producing the trainings. They were the ones with the deepest downlines. They were the ones with the fat pockets. They were the ones with smiles on their face regardless of what was going on around them. It was the people who were actually producing. So I know from that experience, and I've carried that through, it was the best education I could have got at 21. I've carried that through my life, that if I want to make a change, if I want to maximize my return, I need to get directly involved in the production, which is exactly what led me to Hatch. It's exactly what led me to TEDx. It's exactly what led me to Twestival, Leaf. There's a lot of different things that I volunteer my time to do, and the return has been incredible. So back to the story. So who likes to play games? Okay, that's what I thought. Let's see. So now I have your attention, right? I had my children's attention too when I said, okay, we're going to play a game around chores. They were, oh yeah, okay. So we're sitting at the dinner table and we have scrolls of paper, and the first thing that I did was I introduced the mechanic, right? Because you got to have a mechanic in order for a game to work. And the mechanic that I introduced was the acknowledgement mechanic. It's essentially just what it sounds like. I acknowledge you, and so you feel great about what you did. That's it. So the way we were going to build this game is you do chores, you get some kind of acknowledgement for doing the chores, and it's going to work just like that. So let me see where I landed. So as the design team, we had a couple of key tasks. First, we had to develop a list of stuff, which is the list of chores, but I didn't want to call it chores because chores have a bad connotation. And if you call it a list of stuff, it's real neutral, right? Nobody's got issues with stuff. Well, you might, but stuff is less likely to have issues. We'll just say that. We had to create scorecards, And then we had to pick what stamps we were going to use for acknowledgement, and then we had to come up with a name for the game. So immediately my wife jumps in and she's like, "Oh, I got a list of stuff. Okay, you cleaning the kitchen. You get a stamp for cleaning the kitchen. And feeding the dog. You get something for that. And when you do a task, the first time you're asked, you get a reward. And when you go to bed on time in your own bed, you get a stamp, right?" So then my kids jump in and they're like, "Okay, when we join in the clean plate club," right? Because they know that we like to have them clean their plate. "And when I'm sharing with my siblings, and when I'm speaking nice to each other, and when you let us watch more TV shows." No, we knocked that one off right. That did not land on the list of stuff. But it was a list of stuff that we now made, so they could always check in and say, "Okay, well, what can I do to get more stamps?" So the idea is simply this. List of stuff, do stuff, get acknowledged, have somebody witness what you're doing, get acknowledged by stamping their scorecard and saying, "I stamped your card because you just cleaned the kitchen. I stamped your card because you were really nice to me. I really appreciate that." So it's all about acknowledgement. Each night at dinner, we would sit around the table and we would say, "I really appreciated the way you cleaned your kitchen, or you cleaned up your shoes when you got home, or you put your lunchbox on the whatever," right? So we're all acknowledging each other. How engaged do you think they were in the daily activities? They were incredibly engaged. They were pumped up. Every night we would go to bed, or after dinner, we would go to bed with this frenzy of excitement for getting to bed on time. And what was remarkable was my wife complained because all of the work was getting done. She had to invent more work for them to do around the house in order for them to get more stamps. It was really cool. And then this was my favorite part. About 3 days into the 2-week cycle, my son, my 6-year-old, comes up to Diana and says, "Can I cut some vegetables? Can I wash some pots? Because I really want to get another stamp." This is my boy who's now pumped up about doing stuff around the house. Woo! It was a powerful experience for me. And we're in the mode where we're going back to school and we've got routine, and now we need to build a new game because we've definitely got some challenges going to sleep in our own beds at time, on the right time, being excited about doing stuff around the house. So this is the AAA strategy, right? You ask, you agree, and you acknowledge. This is how you engage people. You start by asking. That's pretty simple. Agree. Agreement is incredibly important. Agreement is, if you're asking for people to be involved, once they say, "Okay, I want to be involved," find a way to get them involved. The biggest mistake I see in our community, and this is probably generally true about companies, organizations, and so forth, is we go, "We want involvement," and then somebody says, "Okay, well, I've got we need involvement for buses," and somebody goes, "Okay, I got cars," and then we go, "No, we don't want cars." No, we can solve the same problem with different mechanisms, right? So agreement is critically important, and then acknowledgement, of course, is finding out what they did great, acknowledging them for that. So one last story, and then I'll wrap up. Neil XR he turned 16 years old this week, 2 days ago, and he's a high school student at Asheville High. He came to me this summer and said, "I know you're involved in passenger rail. Tell me how I can get involved. I'm a high school kid. I'm really passionate about trains. I want to ride the train outside of the city of Asheville." And the constant feedback that I've been getting from the city, from the state, from politicians, from the people that are involved in making this happen, and it is happening, is there's nothing that the public can do. Being an engagement specialist, I'm not satisfied with that. So I said, "Neil, there's not a lot you can do directly on the project, but the story needs to be told. So if you want the opportunity to tell that story, you can do the research. There are many opportunities to tell that story." And he is now on track. He hasn't been fully selected, but he's on track for writing his TED Talk for the TEDx Asheville stage on November 13th this year. He's 15 years old. This is going to launch him into a whole new world for himself, and it's a way that he can engage on a much deeper level. The last bit, I put a card under your seats, and on that card, if you flip it over to the white side, there's 4 words down at the bottom, and those are the 4 key ways that you can engage with TEDx Asheville, TEDx Katua, TEDx Asheville salons. Every Thursday is the salons. I hope to see you there, and game on.